All right, and we're live. So thank you guys so much for tuning back in. This is a really special live stream. We have Thanksgiving coming up in less than 2 weeks as of today. So I really wanted to bring two people here. They've both been on the channel before. I will make sure to link the episodes they were both on. Mary's been on a couple times to talk about their journey of healing and recovery. Long-term, I consider it long-term at this point. And you know, we come up to the holidays, we come up to Thanksgiving and Christmas and all these holidays, and we think like, you know, we have to indulge, we have to eat, you know, grandma's special casserole or cake. And what I really want to do today is just bring Mary and Jessyca both on to talk about their experience over multiple years of getting through the holidays and not falling into a sugar carb binge, you know, what we call cheating. So yeah, if you guys don't mind, go ahead and just introduce yourself to everyone who's maybe not familiar with you, and we'll do that first, and then we can kind of just jump into discussion. So Jessyca, you want to go first, and then Mary?
Sure. I'm Jessyca Reynolds. I have been keto and then recently this year carnivore. And this will be my 5th Thanksgiving sober. Sober meaning I don't eat things that harm my body. No sugar, no grains. And yes, it's definitely changed over the years. And I had a battle from age 11 to age 41 with bulimia, anorexia, and binge eating. And eating this way, eating real food, fueling my body the way we're meant to be fueled has saved my life.
Yeah, I love that. Real food.
Right. Real food meaning nothing that's labeled keto. Sorry, it's true. I know we want it to. I know we want net carbs to actually be a thing, but they're not. So.
Yeah, and I love that you say real food because so many people say keto and carnivore are restrictive, and it's like,
or a fad.
Yeah,
like real food is a fad.
Yeah, it's real food. It's not. We're not eating things out of a box or a can. This is real, actual food. So I love that you said all those things. Yeah,
it's the answer.
Yes. Yeah, and Mary, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. My name is Mary Roberts. I am 49, and this will be my 7th holiday season food sober. Again, just like Jessyca said, meaning no sugar, no grains. You know, each year has looked different. Last year, during the holidays, I was doing the 75 hard carnivore challenge. So I had no desserts last year. This year, I might have a dessert. It just depends. But my journey's definitely evolved. And year 1 does not look, you know, but like each year is different. I've had a lifelong battle with food. You know, anywhere from, you know, binge eating, compulsive eating. I was hospitalized in high school for bulimia. I've had a bulimic mindset most of, you know, my adult life. I've been, you know, on and off the diet roller coaster and have tried anything and everything over the years. I think Jessyca and I one time figured out, we tallied up how many diets between the two of us had we tried, and it was over 30 or almost 40, something like that.
I think it was 36. Yeah. And then afterwards I remembered some more diets that we did.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've done and tried everything. And I consider myself keto, but I'm very, you know, meat-based, heavy meat, and you know, ketovore, whatever. I'm mostly carnivore, but occasionally I have an avocado or a salad or something. So I just always like to clarify that because I start to get irritated about the labels, you know, I just eat real food like that, you know, I eat whole foods. I eat, you know, fresh meat. I occasionally eat vegetables, but not really because I don't like them. And it's changed my life. You know, I had all these health issues 7 years ago that I don't have now. And of course, I used to be obese and I'm not obese now. So it definitely has changed my life and I'll never look back.
Yeah, you were type 2 diabetic, which is crazy to me still in this day and age that so many people really don't even know that type 2 diabetes is a reversible condition.
Right.
Well, I think doctors tell them otherwise.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they tell us it's progressive. I mean, it's like when I got diagnosed, it was very like doom and gloom. I thought I was going to die before I was 50.
Yeah. Yeah, it's scary. And Jessyca, you had a host of diagnoses as well before you found keto, right?
A lot of mine were mental health issues. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, agoraphobia, depression, anxiety, OCD. But I also had physical problems. I was 309 pounds and I had really high blood pressure. I had chronic migraines and I had bladder disease, which supposedly is incurable. You're going to be on meds the rest of your life. And now I don't take meds for any of that.
Wow.
That is so exciting to me to say, because it's just one of those things I never thought would be a thing.
Absolutely remarkable, honestly, both of you guys. So that's why I'm just so excited to have this conversation, because so many people maybe have not even all the diagnoses that you guys had, but just a couple of them, and they feel like they're in a jail sentence, a life sentence, and they're stuck and they can never recover,
I like to say I felt like I was too far gone because, like Mary, I found this lifestyle in my 40s. I'm 46 now, but I was 41, and I just thought my best days are over. Like I'm not coming back from this. I'm too fat. I'm too sick. There's too much wrong. So the message that we always try to share with everyone is there is hope, and you are not too old, and you're not alone.
That's never too late.
I love it. And so let's talk a little bit about your first holiday ever, both of you guys. You can just kind of jump off, go back and forth, but like, what was that? Because last year was my first holiday. I was also doing the Carnivore 75 Hard. It was such a cool community thing that we all did. It was my first holiday ever, and I was 40 last year. I'm 41 this year, that I didn't indulge in all the sweets and all the treats and all of the, all the things that I grew up and all these fond memories of. What was that like for each of you guys, your first year? Because I know you're several years in, so we'll kind of talk through the evolution of that.
So my first year, I didn't go off of keto, but I made the keto alternative desserts, because at that time, my mindset was such that I didn't think that, I wasn't at that place where I realized I could have a happy and satisfying life without junk food. So I did make keto alternative desserts that first year, and I ate them. And I probably still overate at Thanksgiving. I don't remember specifically, what I did eat. But I do know that afterwards, like after the weekend passed, I was like, yes, I didn't cheat. And that was my goal, was not to cheat, so that's what it was like, for me. And it evolves, over the years. There's been a few years where I didn't have anything, because I went 2 years with no sweeteners whatsoever. Like I went like, to the other extreme. Once I realized I could live without it, it was like, oh, I'm going to prove it. And for 2 years, I didn't touch anything sweet. And then I kind of mellowed out, and we talk about, Jessyca and I talk about with our clients a lot, how we peel back layers of our sobriety. And that's why each year is different. And, we tackle different aspects of our addiction, each year. So who knows what this year will look like.
What about you, Jessyca?
It's cool because I almost have a documented history of my mindset. Each year I've made a video, like a 2-minute or 3-minute video about my Thanksgiving thoughts. And it's funny to see how it's evolved. And I started off year one, similar to what Mary said. It was just getting through sober. I was grateful that I had begun to be sober at the very beginning of the year. So I had 11 months in. And my mindset was, at that point, I'm in recovery. There is no way that a certain day on the calendar is going to make me go back to the way I was. So going into it, that mindset, it wasn't optional. There are things I did right. There are things I didn't do right. I think the things that I did right were I went in and said, this is what I will do. This is what I won't do. I knew that before I went. People that go in and they say, well, I think I'm going to try to eat keto today. They don't. You have to have your own limits to what you will and won't do. And so I think I did that right. What I didn't do right was I did duplicate pretty much everything you can possibly think of as a keto dish, not just desserts, but stuffing and like literally everything you could think of. So it was still focused around eating. It was still focused on even, overeating, but I still felt better than I ever had. I remember thinking that Thanksgiving was so different because there was more conversation. Like normally we would go and everybody would just pass out in their own chair and take a nap and then eat again. But there was chitter chatter because my whole family was doing keto at that time. I had gotten most of them doing it. And there were some that weren't, but we were just more alive. Like we were actually focused on the fact we were together and not on the food. And so I think I did make a big deal about it. Maybe that's another thing I didn't do right the first year, which is I've got some best practices. One of them is do not go in and announce your sobriety or your keto. That makes things worse, and we can talk about that. But again, the first year was that way, and I know that I still overate, but I did learn from it, and I said, okay, I need to have a limit, not just on what I will and won't do, but how much, because I realized I still overate. I still indulge. I treated that day like it was different. And so the next year I said, well, I'm going to have keto desserts, but I'm only going to have one piece. And so I did that. I followed through. But I learned that I had one piece every day for the next 7 days because it was still in my house. So the year after that, I said, okay, I can have one piece, but it's going home. It's going out of my house. And I felt so good about that. Last year was totally different. I said, Thanksgiving has nothing to do with food. I'm sorry, but it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
We have forgotten that we're here to be thankful for the amazing things that have happened in our life. And for me, one of the most amazing things that's happened in my life is food sobriety. So I'm not going to eat to celebrate my gratitude for food sobriety. It just didn't make sense. So not only did I not eat keto sweets last year, I really stuck to exactly, I didn't overeat. I got one plate. I put a normal amount of food on it, and that was it. I literally ate like it was a regular day. And that felt amazing. And I feel, this year, still being carnivore, I'll have meat and butter. And I'm excited about that. But it really is this evolution. And I think it's important for us as coaches, we have clients who are on year one. And if they say, what are you going to eat on Thanksgiving? And I say, well, turkey and beef, maybe possibly ham, maybe some bacon. That is overwhelming to them. So we have to remember where we were on year one and tell them it's okay,
Yeah, and I know that our eating disorder. Sorry, there seems to be feedback.
If you're not talking, put your mic on mute, and I think that'll help the echoing. That's what I've been doing.
Okay.
Echoing. So yeah.
So, I tell my clients and Jessyca and I talk about it. Our eating disorder or addiction doesn't care what day of the week it is, whether it's a holiday, what our location is. Those seem to be things that like trip people up. Well, I'm going on vacation, or it is Thanksgiving, it is Christmas. Like that's something different. Like we have to behave differently than we do every other day. And when it comes to being food sober, that's just not true. It's just another day.
Yeah, one thing that Jessyca said that, I've heard you say before, Mary, as well, I'd love to discuss this, is like this whole thing of like, what people say is live a little, it's a holiday, it's a birthday, it's that. And what I have started saying now, like living a little, that sounds terrible. I don't want to just live a little. I want to live a lot. I want to have connections with my family and my friends and enjoy moments. And if I'm eating these foods that make me feel bad, I'm not living a little. I am living a little, and I could be living a lot. Does that make sense? What do you guys think?
I don't even see it as living. I see it as dying. The trajectory I was on when I was eating those things before was leading me to my death. I do not believe that I would be here. I literally don't believe that. I believe I would be gone one way or another. And So for me to say, to connect, I have to disconnect what the event is from what the reason, from the food that's there. And you can do that with any event, not just Thanksgiving. People have such strong connections from certain foods to certain holidays. But remember why you're actually there. What is the actual purpose? I know I've had people say to me, but I'm going to this dinner and I'm meeting these senators. And I mean, literally, that's happened. And it's this big mingle thing. And I don't want to be weird with my food. I'm like, so let them put it on your plate. Do you really think anybody's watching what you're eating? It doesn't matter. And I said, what is the real reason you're there? Are you there for the potatoes? She's like, no. I'm like, what are you there for? She said, to network. I'm like, so network, talk, stay busy. And if all else fails, use the technique of taking your spoon and moving it around, just like you do when you're a kid and you don't want to eat something. People don't care what you're eating, which is why it's really good not to make an announcement or make a big deal about it when you're not, if you haven't been food sober very long, or you don't need to draw more attention to yourself. Make it easy,
Right. Well, when I have, we hear it all the time, live a little, treat yourself. And I have, it's that mentality that I don't want to live a little. I do. I want to live a lot. And a long time, as long as God has me to be planned for me to be here. And the whole treat yourself thing. Well, I treated myself up to 260 pounds. And for me now, I don't view harmful foods as a treat. If I eat that, what am I truly treating myself to? I'm treating myself to diabetes, fat pants, depression, high blood pressure, high blood sugar. None of that is desirable. That's not what my goal is. So why would I put something in my mouth that's going to bring that on? That's not a treat.
Yeah, the words treat and deserve are words that come up a lot in our food addiction groups. But you deserve a holiday. You deserve this. And I'm like, no, I deserve wellness. Or just have a taste of it. I'm like, no, I'll have a taste of freedom. I mean, seriously, you have to address those things that are popping up in your own head. But I would say the other thing that is probably going to be a big thing for people that are watching is, how do I deal with the other people in my life that might be food pushers and naysayers? And how do I get out of, you said, how do I get out of, if, Uncle Richard makes an amazing pie and he comes up to me and he says, I baked this just for you. And there are so many people the day after Thanksgiving who on our groups are like, I couldn't say no, it hurt their feelings. It's how they're showing me love. And I think our mindset has to be this. If I truly believe that certain foods are harmful to me, either to my mind or to my body or both, like it's going to trigger my addiction, or it's going to trigger binge behavior, or it's going to create inflammation in my body. If I truly believe that, then I'm not going to compromise for anyone. So if you found out you had an allergy to peanuts and you went to someone's house and the way that they show love is giving you fancy peanuts, would you eat them? No.
Yeah, I think that's so important to make that analogy, because we just don't do it. We've been kind of told all of our lives that these are fun foods and they're there for our entertainment, but we don't really think about how those foods have affected our bodies. And like Mary was talking about, and you've talked about, we started off this conversation with like the list of health, not even challenges, I would say issues and like disease that had come to your body over the age of 40. I mean, that's when I feel like you can get away with a certain amount of things under 40, but once you hit 40, the rubber kind of hits the road, and you start seeing things like diabetes and all these other issues pop up. So seeing that analogy, do you have anything to add to that, Mary?
I was just going to say, well, what you were talking about, the health and how things do kind of start to go, more wrong when we hit a certain age. But I think if you look at our population, There are so many, there are children, teenagers, people in their 20s that they're already morbidly obese. They're already being affected. And, they may not be diagnosed with stuff yet, but that's where they're heading. So, I think we definitely do have to have that mindset. Like part of our, long-term success is that you really do have to, what Jessyca was talking about, you have to believe that, these things are harmful because, and you have to take your problem seriously because the rest of the world probably does not. Society surely does not take this, the afflictions we have around food seriously. Like we see these memes and people make jokes about Uncle Bob falling asleep on the couch with his top button undone, like it's a joke to overeat and to stuff
Wear
ourselves.
your fat pants.
Yeah, stuff ourselves. I'm gonna wear stretchy pants. It's a joke and people don't take it seriously. And sometimes I feel like, okay, I'm a killjoy because we're saying, because people take sometimes what we're saying as, you can't have fun at the holidays unless you're eating all the crap food, right? I mean, that's what that voice of sabotage says is, really, you're not gonna have the desserts? Well, you're not gonna have any fun. And that is not true. We can have fun without, hurting ourselves. And I think that is crucial to our recovery, is really, truly, believing. I've said often that, like, I see eating a, bakery cupcake the same way I would see eating rat poison. Like, I'm not going to do either of those because I know they're terrible for me.
That's Mary and I talk about this stuff so often together. It's just like a natural thing. We go back and forth. But I think it's really important to anticipate what your struggles might be. Who is a relative that's a food pusher? Who is going to say that to you? And be prepared for that so it doesn't catch you off guard. One of the biggest things that we see is people will say, well, my kids kept pushing food on me. They kept saying, oh, have some dessert, have some dessert. And one of the things we have to say is, you caused that. 99% of the time, you caused it, because you go in and you're like, and you're dissatisfied and you're in a deprivation mindset and you're looking miserable, and your kids who love you want to help and they want to fix it. And they're like, oh, come on, mom, just have some. You set that up. You can't even blame the kids. So I think taking personal responsibility, anticipating those kind of things. We also often talk about just easy one-word things to say. Somebody tries to hand you a pie, you say, thank you, I'm full. And you take it with you and you throw it away or you give it away. Or if someone really presses, hey, try some now, you can say, you know what, I recently gave up sugar and when I eat it, I get deathly ill. And or wheat or whatever the ingredient is. There's quick, easy things that you can say to get out of any situation if you have your mind set. Otherwise, you will blame all the circumstances around you for overeating or eating things that you didn't intend to.
Right. We teach people how to treat us. We've trained people how to treat us. So, what Jessyca said is absolutely true, that, people, when our loved ones see us miserable or perceive us as miserable, they're just trying to help. But we tend to see it as they're pushing stuff on us. But we have taught them that, in the past, when they offer us something and we give in, that's our pattern, that we're going to give in. So and there are definitely, things that we can say, like the thing with, always like the relative who makes the special dessert. I would say, thank you so much. It looks beautiful. It looks amazing, but I can't eat another bite right now. I'll take it with me. And then I'll let my family eat it or give it to somebody, who eats it. We don't have to feel obligated to right then and there eat something. And I think that, when we stick to what we say we're going to, and we do that repeatedly, then we show them a new side of us, right? They'll begin to, like, Jessyca has a great story about her grandson. Her grandson is only 5, but he knows 100% she doesn't eat sugar. She trained him to show him she doesn't eat sugar. And so he doesn't offer her stuff.
He will even say, like, he'll eat something and he'll say, Lolly doesn't eat sugar, right? And I'm like, that's right. He said, because it's bad for you. And I said, that's right. I don't control what he does or doesn't eat, but he knows. I've told him that since he was a little kid, because people will blame their children. They're like, but I was making cookies with my child and I had to eat one. It would hurt their feelings. I'm like, no, I can make cookies with Dawson if I want to. I'm not going to eat it. It really is seeing how for you it is toxic. Not just toxic to your body, but toxic to your journey to freedom. It sets you back. And a lot of people fall for that, like, I've been sober for a while now, or I haven't eaten this for a while now. I'm just going to take this one day. It always, always spirals. It always does. And it's just, you have to look back at your own history and you can see, how many times did I believe it was just going to be for this one day and it wasn't? There's a point where you have to say, okay, that's never true.
Yeah, I Katrina, who's been on the show before and is a coach with you guys as well. I love how she tells the story of, going on a cruise and saying, I'm going to kind of eat what I want on this cruise. I'm going to enjoy my vacation. It's going to be awesome. And then what was it, like 5 years later?
Yeah.
Before she was able to go back to doing what was feeling good. She was on keto. She had lost like 60 pounds or something, was feeling great. Mm-hmm. And she said, I'm just going to take this cruise and like enjoy my vacation and all the stuff that we have, all those, like, I think that they're lies that we have stuck in our head. Mm-hmm. and just go with it. And then you come back and it's like, well, like you said, the week after you had that one dessert, you had one piece every day until it was gone. So our addiction, that voice of sabotage, I love how you guys call it that. It tells us all kinds of things. And, we get vulnerable. We get maybe hungry, angry, lonely, tired, which is, hello, 2020 is a big halt experience. And that voice creeps in, and before we know it, we're miserable again. So what are some other, I love the technique of, like, talking to people who offer you things and having those responses, like, laid out, ready to go, one word, boom, the end, very strong boundaries. What are some other techniques that you guys encourage your clients to use, or what is some of the other advice that you give to them as they're approaching holiday season?
If you are going to go into a situation and you don't know for sure that there's going to be food you can eat before you go. Do not go in hungry when your sobriety is fragile, especially because literally you said halt, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Hungry is a huge danger zone for compromise. And so eat before you go. Make sure you're not counting on what's there to satisfy you and nurture you. Because sometimes even if there is something you can eat, it's like a cucumber and it's not going to be what you need. So it's really important. And of course, taking something with you and, a large amount that you can serve to other people too. So you're sure you have something if that's appropriate.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Bring something that you can eat. So at the very least, you can eat what you have brought with you. Always like offer to bring something. And if it's at your house, sometimes people, I don't want to, make like 2 of everything, like mashed potatoes and mashed cauliflower. Well, why not? Like, set yourself up for success. If it's at your house, you are 100% in control of, what you're serving, unless people are bringing things. But again, when your mindset is food sober, it doesn't matter what other people are bringing. But just, take charge of your circumstances and be prepared for, what you need in order to succeed and stay food sober through that day.
And expect obstacles, anticipate, think about Thanksgivings in the past, think about other social occasions. Who is going to technically, like, who in your life would you call a food pusher? Sometimes it's like we talked about before, they are trying to take care of you. Other people, it's almost like a challenge to them to get you to break your diet because the fact that you're doing really well makes them sometimes feel like, well, I'm not eating well and it's embarrassing. Like they think it shines a light on their eating behavior, and it really doesn't. Um, Again, one of the biggest things is go in, don't make an announcement about how you eat or that, hey, this is my 5th Thanksgiving food sober. Go in and put the meat on your plate and sit down, enjoy it, and smile and interact and be grateful. The more you make it about gratitude, it's Thanksgiving, and the less you make it about food, make food like every day, make it nourishing. But not getting yourself in conversations also where you get challenged on things that you may not be educated on yet. So the first year I was so excited about keto because I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to look how good I look. It's been 11 months and I've lost all this weight. And I expected my family to be happy for me. And some of them weren't. They said things like, you're going to die. Yeah, you're losing weight. We've seen you lose weight before. They didn't even take me seriously. Like, you're seriously not going to cheat today? They had never seen me not cheat. But I didn't have all the tools to answer the questions or to confront some of the things that they believed that weren't true. So again, it's a mistake to get in this huge nutrition conversation generally when you're new to it.
Yeah, and our ego, tells us that like other people care what we're doing, and so we're so like self-focused that we think everybody's wondering what we're doing, and the only reason anybody ever knows what we're doing is because we open our mouth. So literally, if we go into these situations over the holidays and don't open our mouth, we could put whatever we want on our plate, and chances are, or nothing on our plate. And if we're walking around with having a drink in our hand, or we're having conversation with people, the chances of people noticing what we're eating or not eating are slim to none, because they don't care. They're all thinking about themselves.
I have fasted through events and no one's realized it because I was socializing. I was hosting the party. No one noticed. Another thing you can do that's worked for some people. So I had a client that was like, my grandpa is turning 90 and he makes this special jam, this homemade jam. And there's no way that I can go to that party with my whole family and not eat that jam because it will hurt him. And I said, if you don't eat it, does it mean you love him any less? And she said, no. And I said, then you're talking yourself into a reason to eat it. If you love him no less, it doesn't matter if you do or don't. And I bet you no one will notice if you don't. So what we did was she went in, she made some things, but she went in and she offered to serve it. She served the dessert to everyone. People just assumed she also had some. She was the server. She engaged in conversation. She stayed busy, and people didn't ask whether or not she ate some. They just assumed she did. So there's distraction techniques that are really, really good for that sort of occasion too. And remember, it doesn't mean you love the person less because you don't eat the food they made. It doesn't at all. In fact, it means I care enough about myself that I want to be around and I want to be healthy to enjoy your company for many more years.
Wow, this is such a powerful thing and so many valuable tools for people, because we just, this is the thing about, for me, addiction. The biggest thing that I've learned, I've been in recovery for 11 years and 4 years now, because I had a year lapse in there because I had decided, like we said, we'd get going for a while. I had 4 years. And I said, I'm fine, I can do this. And then it was a year before I came back into recovery. And that was not a fun year. It was probably one of the worst years of my life. And so the thing that I've found, and I don't know about you guys, is like the voices that we want to say is everybody else pressuring us and everyone else is, we care about how they feel. It's us. It's that personal accountability. And for me, this is one question I want to ask you guys, because this is something I've experienced with struggling with my food, the last number of years here, and eating is like, I can go to an event and kind of just like, strong arm myself through it, get through it. And then I get home and it's like, I let down my guard. And that's when I have historically binged. It wasn't necessarily the event, but it was like I felt so relieved to have gotten through this event, and now I'm home and I'm by myself.
Yes.
Binge picked up. So what do you have for advice on that type of situation?
That's again, you name the top triggers: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Lonely is one thing, and tired is another thing. You're both those things. You are now alone, and you are tired from white knuckling it through an event. And I think what you're saying is not uncommon at all. Lots of people make it through the thing and then they binge in private, or they eat very small amounts in front of people, and then they go and they binge in private. The question is, what is the lie that you believe when you have that behavior? I need to celebrate that I made it through, or now I can get away with it because no one's watching. The problem is when you believe a lie and then you act on it, you're going to continue in the behavior. If you realize there's a lie you believe every single time, you can confront it with truth, right? So the truth is, I made it through. I'm not going to ruin it by binge eating tonight. I think it's just literally stopping. HALT, halt, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, means stop. Stop. I am not safe to make a food decision. So many clients are like, Jessyca, when I think of you, I think of your hand up like that, because halt, it literally spells halt, stop. If you know you're in a danger zone, if you've identified this is what I normally do, also identify what's the lie that trips me up every time, and be prepared for that. That's a big thing. Anticipate. I'm going to hear from the voice of sabotage, or Ed as we call it. I'm going to hear from him when I get home. I already know I'm going to. What am I going to say back when he tells me to celebrate? If you don't pause, if you don't halt, you're just going to go with it. You go on autopilot because you've done the same thing. But if you stop, you can say, what do I really think is going to happen here? Am I going to be happy about it? What do I really need? Identify the actual need. If I'm tired, I need to rest. If I'm lonely, I need to phone a friend or text somebody and get busy talking. Like, the food isn't going to do whatever it is I think it's going to do for me, or whatever the voice of sabotage promised.
Yeah, when we are in the situation where we're white knuckling it in that situation, we are using sheer willpower. We're not using recovery technique. Like, willpower is not a recovery technique. We're just like really, pushing through. And the reason it feels so hard and using willpower is because we believe we're losing something, we're missing out on something, and so we're trying to be good, and we push through, and we're so relieved to make it through the event that we spend that whole time thinking about what we're missing out on. And when we focus on what we're missing out on, ultimately, like, we're going to cave. That voice of sabotage is like, look, you didn't have any fun at that event, so now nobody's watching. Go ahead, have what you want, and then tomorrow you can get back on track. And our history says that that's not true. We never get back on track. But so the reason we need to have mental tools and techniques is because willpower only works for so long. For some, it works through just the amount of the time of the event. Other people can use willpower. I know I used willpower in the past for weeks and months at a time, but ultimately it runs out. Mm-hmm. And you have to have a long-term, we can do these short-term strategies, but we have to have a game plan for the long term. We cannot use distraction and avoidance and willpower till we're 90 years old to stay away from binging. We have to have actual tools. We have to know what is causing us to want to use the food for purposes other than hunger. And that's really what it boils down to. Like, it's not because we love this food so much. It's not because it tastes so great. I mean, it is those things partly, but we believe there's something it's going to do for us that it's not doing. And at some point we have to acknowledge that it's not doing for us what we believed it's been doing. So
that is 100% true. But Mary just said something that made me think. When you're new to this, temporary distractions are okay. So one of the things that I did back then, it made me remember, if I felt tempted beyond what I could handle, I would do something that made it really hard for me to eat. I personally started putting on white strips first of all, they're expensive. And I'm like, I know I can't eat with this white strip in my mouth. And so it made me halt. I didn't have it in me to halt and think it through. But if I did something that made it difficult, like paint my nails, put on white strips, go outside, dig my hands in the dirt, make it physically, long term, that doesn't work, right? But when you're new to this and you feel like I don't have what it takes to resist in the moment, actually making it physically difficult for you to eat is okay. Long term, not so much. You have to work on the whys. But when you said that, it just made me remember some of the things that I used to do. Like, get in the tub. You're not going to eat in the tub, are you?
Yeah, in our groups, we do address, the short-term strategies, because people coming in, they are newly food sober, and they do need some things that, what can I do in the moment? One of the things that I did in the beginning was read. I switched from watching TV, because watching TV was a danger zone for me. Sitting in front of the TV was cue for my time to binge and eat. So I gave up TV and started reading, and for whatever reason I didn't feel compelled to eat when I read. But I don't have to use reading now as a way to not eat. Jessyca no longer has to use white strips, but it was definitely a temporary tool in the beginning, and as long as you work on the head stuff, you'll eventually graduate from those techniques.
That's right. Yeah, it isn't just the food. I think that's one of the big things about recovery. Some people try carnivore or keto, and they say, well, I tried it and I didn't get any better, or I tried it and I still have an eating disorder. It's not just that. First, it's the food. I think that when you switch to a whole real food diet, for me, it's high fat carnivore. My whole weight loss journey and journey to wellness, I ate a very high fat diet. I always like to say that, because there are people that think you cannot eat high fat and lose weight, and you absolutely can't. So, but for me, it was really, really important to, to eat high fat, and it worked for me. Because it did squash my hunger. Some people just aren't doing that. They think it's something that it's not, and they're afraid of fat. But you can't. I think the fat makes your brain work better. It helps you think more clearly. I know it helped my mental health, but I still had to use therapy. I still had to have tools that I had picked up over time and use them. The fat helps. It helps your hunger. It helps your brain. It helps you think clearly, but you still can't ignore your destructive patterns, or you will continue in them even on keto or carnivore.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just having this conversation with, I use a ton of tools, and I'm not shy about it. I mean, I meditate, I pray. I've just started doing EFT, which is emotional freedom technique tapping. And so I had a coaching session this morning with my teacher, and she brought out this analogy that I thought was hilarious. She calls it the Spanx analogy. And she says, what happens when you put Spanx on, right? Like, you still have to deal with like stuff coming over the top and the sides. Like, it's still there. You're just smushing it in. And so she isn't carnivore or keto, but she's realized that sugar and cheese are trigger foods for her. And that if she eats them, she's just completely out of control. And now she's realized nuts are trigger foods for her too. Surprise, surprise. But she says, I've just decided to eliminate. I decided first I was going to eliminate sugar. And then I found myself binging on cheese. And then I said, okay, now it's sugar and cheese. And now I find myself binging on nuts. And now the nuts have to go. She's like, but then it was like a big aha moment. It's like, something inside of me is causing me to overeat these foods and to seek out these foods, because this is something going on inside of me. And it doesn't matter what you probably want to stay away from your trigger foods, but it doesn't matter what I do or how restrictive I get, I'm going to find something, something's always spilling over, because you can't put Spanx over your entire body. So what kind of stuff do you guys have people to do, or to deal with that internal stuff? Because you just can kind of go from one thing to the other. What do you guys both think about that?
I think most people don't realize that the reason they're doing that is they are pushing something down. Why do we get home and binge eat after a party? Well, a lot of times it's because during that party we felt maybe like we didn't, like we were weird, or we were different, or we weren't part of it, or we felt embarrassed, or we felt like we didn't fit in, or the feelings that happened during the event led to the need to push them down when I got home. So it isn't necessarily about the food. When people tell me, when clients say to me, I went to this party and then after I got home, I ate, I'm like, tell me what happened at the party. How did you feel? Did you have a good time? And they're like, well, no, there was this awkward situation or this and this. And I'm like, that's what you didn't want to feel. We encourage people, and I know this is going to sound cheesy, to feel their feelings. Because if as long as you push it down, it's going to keep coming back up until you deal with it. I don't care if it's been 20 years. If you've thought about it, maybe you've even taken that thing out and shown it to your therapist and talked about it and allowed yourself to get angry, but then you put it back and you stuff it down some more. It isn't until you truly release it, put it out there. I found openness to the world is one way to do it. Some people don't get that, but I find that when I put it out there, I have no shame. I have nothing to hide. The question then is, what are you stuffing down? And whether you're using nuts or cheese, like you can be full on keto. Mary and I originally bonded over our nuts addiction. We're both coaches. We both are telling people how to lose weight and all this stuff. And we both are, we talk to each other like, yeah, I'm addicted to nut butter. Yeah, me too. I can't stop. And so that was one of the ways we initially bonded, because we both had that issue, still pushing things down. What was I pushing down then? I had to realize, like, okay, I'm not perfect yet. Am I really good enough to be a coach? That's how I felt in the beginning. I was pushing down that anxiety. Am I a fraud? I mean, the things that you're pushing down, they're deep. And sometimes it's trauma, and sometimes it's ways you feel about yourself, self-worth, self-esteem, but being open to saying, what is it? What feeling is it that I'm trying not to feel right now is huge. And then saying whatever pain it takes to sit through it is better than the pain of pushing it down and dealing with it again for another 20 years. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I always get deep. Me and Mary have so much fun, but I always get deep.
All of that is absolutely true also, but it's important to acknowledge, we acknowledge in our programs that there is such a thing as bad food.
Yes.
One of the things that we hear all the time in the eating disorder treatment community, is that there are no bad foods and we shouldn't restrict. But the very nature of, I'll speak for myself, but I'm sure y'all can relate. Carbs do something to me that meat does not. So, there is an actual physiological response to certain things. Like if I were to, eat something, if I had, let's say I had nothing to stuff down, right? And I were to eat something, I could still feel compelled to continue eating just because of the actual physical reaction to that food. So I think it's important to acknowledge that is true, that that we are not unwell if we cannot eat all the things. The eating disorder treatment community basically says that if you can't eat one brownie and walk away, you're broken. You are not free. You don't have food freedom if you can't just eat one brownie.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody says that to in alcohol and drug rehab. Nobody says to them, listen, you'll be well when you can have one drink and walk away, or when you only party on Friday nights and it doesn't destroy your life. Nobody says that, because they understand the nature of addiction. And that's something that, unfortunately, the treatment community for eating disorders is missing, and not acknowledging that there is an actual addiction. So, there are certain.
They don't care much for us.
No.
For Mary and I, they've let us know that they don't care for our message, and part of it is because guess what? You can get well, and then you don't have to keep going back to treatment over and over and over again. It's true. It's unfortunate, sad, but I think that like loops everything back around to this holiday thing, because if you realize and believe, it all starts with acceptance. I have a problem and I have an addiction, and the cure is sobriety. There isn't moderation. There's never going to be. The cure is sobriety. Then it's exactly like saying to someone who's been sober for 11 months, yeah, but you should be able to drink on the holidays. When they say to us, yeah, but you should be able to eat on the holidays, it doesn't matter. And you also, there's no reason to be mad at people that say that stuff to you. They don't know what it's like. They literally cannot picture being able to stop eating. At first I would get mad at people who challenged me, like, how dare they suggest that? I'm like, because that's what other people do. They have no idea the turmoil and the torture that is for me if I eat one thing. And so you have to kind of realize, like, people are coming from their perspective, and they often don't mean harm. They just don't get it.
I call them normies.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Because it's like, and this is something I've talked about quite a bit, is I feel like there's an addiction spectrum, and I know where I am. I'm like on the farthest end of like, you are an addict. This is who you are. This is just how it is. Don't try to fight it. Don't try to be, I always, we say in recovery, like once you're a pickle, you can never turn back into a cucumber. Right. So it's just not, it's impossible. So I've got, you got cucumbers over here trying to tell you, trying to tell pickles what to do. That's a really silly analogy, but it's kind of like, you have to look at it that way. And a lot of people aren't going to understand. Like I always tell the story of like, before I started carnivore, I was working with a nutritionist because my binging was just out of control. I was malnourished. I wasn't absorbing. I was trying to do heavy plants and just a little meat, it was just all over the place. And I kept on binging. And she's like, this is how we're going to stop your binging. We're just going to have one cookie a day. We're going to make these special paleo cookies, and you just eat one per day. So you have a treat coming. And so you don't feel so restricted. And I was like, that sounds like the worst idea I've ever heard, to have one cookie. Who wants one cookie? I want
12. One cookie just makes me mad. That's right.
Infuriating. So it's kind of like you have to tell those people that, they have a clinical idea of things, and they've read all these intuitive eating books, and they think that they know. I trust you guys about 1,000 times more than I trust those people, because you've been there. You have walked the walk. You have gone through, like a combined total of almost 12 years of going through life and living life and feeling your feelings. We call it living life on life's terms. Mm-hmm. And I find what you guys both have to say so valuable.
When we talk about the lies from the voice of sabotage, the biggest lie of all is that lie of moderation. And people that have issues with food, we so desperately want to be moderators. We believe that that's what we're supposed to be. And, we try so hard over and over, and we fail at it. And then we say things like, what is wrong with me? Or I just don't know what's wrong with me. I'm so stupid. I'm this, I'm that. Like, because we think that we're supposed to be a moderator, but we're not. I'm married to one. He doesn't care about food. He forgets to eat. He naturally fasts because he just doesn't care. He can order a dessert at a restaurant, and halfway through, if he's full, he leaves it there. And I'd be like,
so weird.
Who does that? I'm not a moderator. I cannot eat just one or two bites. I don't leave, I never left food on the plate. And if other people left food on their plate, I was eating theirs too. Like, so abstinence is the only thing that works for me. I am incapable of moderating. And once I accepted that, life became so much better.
The spectrum of, you said it like there's a scale or something of, in the group, we say, in our eating disorder groups, we say there is eating disorders from slightly disordered, once I start eating, I can't stop, or I think about food all the time, to Mary and Jessyca. But we always say, like, because some people listen to us and they hear our stories, and I realize my story is an extreme thing. I was near death. And people hear that and they're like, sometimes Ed, the voice of sabotage, will say to them, you're not as bad as that, so you don't need sobriety. And the reality is, and I tell people this, and it's the absolute truth, eating disorders are progressive. There was a point where I wasn't as bad as me either, but I continued in the destructive behaviors versus doing the thing I needed to do, and it gets worse and worse and worse. I'm like, eventually you'll probably be like me if you keep living like you're living. So I think sometimes it's harder for the people that are kind of here on that spectrum because they're like, oh, I'm not as bad as that. I bet I can still moderate. It's harder for them to get to a place of acceptance. And that's also true because their life may not be wrecked yet, but it will be. There will be a point when your life is wrecked if you continue to give in to your addiction. So I just wanted to point that out because we sometimes think it's harder for us who are way over here, but a lot of times we're like, no, I can't live this way. I am going to die. And this person's like, maybe it's not so bad. They forget what it was like when they were in their addiction, and maybe they get clean, but they're like, oh, maybe it wasn't so bad. And then they engage in it, and now they're here. And
they haven't experienced that pain yet.
Right.
Like, we hear that like rock bottom thing. Sometimes people need to get to 400 pounds before they make a change. Whereas other people, if they've been 120 pounds their whole life, they get to 160 and they're like, oh my God, that's their turning point. Everybody's got like that different pain point, and that pain threshold. And so for people that struggle getting well, they may not be in enough pain yet.
Or they may not know or accept the truth yet. I think there's two different ways that people make an extreme change. They either have that pain moment where they're afraid they're going to die, their life flashes before their eyes, or they get incredibly inspired. They see someone, they hear someone that sounds like them, like you and you and you, and they're like, whoa, if she did it, I can do it. So part of what we do is offer that second alternative. Maybe you haven't got to the pain point, but your life just isn't the way you want it to be. Maybe food isn't like everything to you, but it takes up too much time and space in your life and in your brain. And what we're saying is, you don't have to live that way. You don't. And so inspiration can be as powerful of a motivator as fear and pain.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we call it in recovery, the gift of desperation. If you're on that other end, I think desperation can be a gift, and hitting that bottom of just being like, I can't live like this. This is, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Can't do this anymore. And, that's why I just love for people to know that there is another option out there, that, I'm seeing this whole movement come up with like intuitive eating and all of that. And it's like people maybe give that a try and end up feeling worse. And so that's why I love what the both of you do. It's like we give people this other option of like, you don't have to live your life feeling like you're imprisoned to these foods and these events and all this stuff. Like there is another way. So, or about it an hour. So I wanted to know if you guys have any closing thoughts, or talk a little bit about maybe some of the things that you're doing for holiday support for people who are, maybe this is their first year or they've been doing this for a while. They just want some support. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we actually, so, Jessyca and I, it's been 2 years now, we've been running the food addiction and recovery group. And we have our next one starting on the 22nd, right in time and it's an 8-week group, right in time for the holidays. So if you are one of those people that the holiday derails you every year, this would be a good opportunity for you to, practice and have your first sober holiday.
Yeah. It's interesting. We've both been coaches for a lot longer, but we started this group together 2 years ago, the week of Thanksgiving. And it was Mary who decided the timing of it. And I was like, she's nuts. These people are not going to sign up Thanksgiving week. They're going to be like, I'm going to have my one last hurrah. But we filled the group, and we had to actually create a second one running at the same time because so many people came to it. People don't want to go through this whole thing. They're sick of the roller coaster. They feel compelled, but they do need help. And so what we actually have found is that people who start the week of a event, they actually have a higher success rate because they want it so bad. Other people have that mindset of, I'm going to wait till after New Year's. But sadly, this is not just Thanksgiving. It isn't just Christmas. It's an eating season. The damage you can do in 3 months of eating, it's not about 3 days of eating, Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. It is all in between. And the damage you do by putting it off and waiting till the new year, I can tell you, you're going to wish you were where you are now, or that you had started now. So we just encourage people, when you're ready to get well, you're ready to get well. If you say, I'm ready to get well, but I'm going to start tomorrow, you're not ready.
Yeah, we have the tomorrow mentality, because it, you know, it perpetuates the behavior entirely. So, and I have your website and both of your Instagram handles linked below this video, so people can find you, find out how to get into your groups, and, you know, work with you. And so thank you guys both so much for coming. And this was just such an awesome conversation. My hope is that it's going to reach people who are really needing help right now, make them feel that they're not so alone, and know that there is another option. And I feel like, I mean, I got a lot out of it. So I hope everybody out there did as well. But thank you guys again for coming.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you for watching.
Bye.